Alright, hello and welcome back to Let's Play yet another no-name MAME game. Today's no-name MAME game is, of course, Warlords. So, let's jump right into the game. So, let's see. There we go. So now we've got Senior Mirror Move. So, we can see the difference between their two input schemes. So, on the left green pink-ish player, I've got, the left makes the, it controls the analog increasing, or the paddle increasing, decreasing. Whereas on the right, we have the paddle as an analog. And considering that we're playing on an arcade stick, that's, got one actually. It's almost impossible to hit it. Oh, it's like the computers smell blood and they're going straight forward. That's kind of interesting. It seems like you can get away. Even if you can only hit it in like 3 positions, then you're fine. But, we thank you for your sacrifice, Senior Mirror Move. Now, as you can clearly see, this is a 4-player game, and now I'm not going to say that there aren't a lot of 4-player arcade machines, but, I mean, for as cool an experience as it is, there aren't too many. Now, I mean, there are plenty of sort of 4-player experiences that you can't quite do in MAME yet, hopefully. Maybe they'll implement it, but like all of the early 90s or mid 90s-ish racing games where you could do like a network play, that is sadly missing. Although it does kind of seem to go completely against MAME's ideals of no emulation. Well, it's not entirely true, but like only emulation for preservation's sake, not necessarily fun's sake. But otherwise, well, one day it might happen. And of course, you could always try doing netplay with like various game consoles that like the racing games are released, and you could sort of get away with that, but after a certain point, oh gosh. But yeah, actually, this seems like it would be an awesome party game if you can work out like exactly how you're gonna do it, because you might remember I mentioned like a $40 Belkin spinner thing for the paddle, and that thing is certainly impressive, but it, oh, that spinner. Spinner strikes again. Whereas this, we could probably do it. I mean, the spinner thing's like $40. That's something you can barely justify for yourself, much less for them for this. Although I would imagine that this is a pretty good 4-player game. I mean, it's very simple, it's to the point. You've got computers if you need them, I guess. Although this is kind of one of those instances in games, 4-player games especially, where having that extra computer player just kind of messes things up. I mean, the problem is, like, sometimes computer players are just too good at games. Like, especially even Mario Party, where, like, if you play 3 human players and 1 computer player, some of these games, it's like the computer's gonna win every single time. And so you kind of lose something from the experience by not having any humans in the game. Whereas this, yeah, is sort of like the CPU is insane thing. And although they do seem to do a nice enough job of not necessarily focusing on one person too much, but you just know the computers have like a secret little pact amongst themselves where they never hurt each other. Ooh, good one, Senior Mirror Move. But otherwise, pretty nice game. I mean, especially if you actually have all the people. Although, yeah, it is one of those games where, like, it forces you into continuous 4-player gameplay. I mean, like, beat-em-ups or something, you can play with, like, fewer players, and it won't just instantly default into 4-player. I've also heard of a cool game called Trock, which I guess you could describe very loosely as 4-player Pac-Man. And that one, like, you kind of buy in as players, and so actually, if we're gonna talk about multiplayer arcade games, though, my absolute all-time favorite multiplayer arcade game is Neck and Neck. So each player, okay, so it's a horse racing game. Each player only has one little button, and then with that button, you make the horse jump. And you can have, just from the sheer simplicity of it, you can have 6 people playing at the same time. It gets pretty insane, and if you've heard of the fabled video arcade in my middle school, which I still to this day can't quite comprehend, that was one of them, and 6 players, well, assuming some of the buttons weren't broken or anything, that was the place to be. Well, not quite, but it was still pretty cool. And the gameplay, it's all about timing, so it does kind of get a little old after a while, after you give it enough time. But I don't know, I really like just the whole aspect of constant 6-player gaming. That's not something you see a whole lot outside of, like, crazy network things or online whatchamacallits is. Anyway, that brings us down to Warlords, which, I mean, assuming you can get the control input right, which it's not too big an if. I mean, if you had an analog thing, I think the sensitivity would, like, make it a bit more fun. This is not 100%, but assuming you could get the input working, then no, this seems like a really nice game. And I mean, yeah, it looks really simplistic and basic, but that just means it's a lot easier for your not-so-gaming inclined friends to just jump right in and be like, hey, I know how to play this game. And I do especially like that you use, like, a knight's shield as your little paddle thing. Because, I mean, one thing, the knight shield, it's a little angled at the front, so it always makes the ball go off in, like, a little unpredictable directions. Of course, as you probably get a feel for this, the ball doesn't quite go, like, everywhere. It's sort of a little constrained, I think, into some sort of, albeit crazy grid, but ultimately just a grid. And, yeah, it's pretty nice. And it's a pretty great way to keep in with the night theme. Although I feel like, well, I say it's about 50-50 letting the CPUs play, because on one hand, you lose out on that opportunity to place bets on which CPU is going to win. But on the other hand, you might have to play through like 20 minutes of like a CPU, like playing perfect games against each other. So I can kind of see how it would work out either way. And yeah, did you see that one of the high scores is CGR? Dang, I'm impressed. Well, yeah, solid Pong for 4 players. That's all you need to know, really. Well, on that note, this cat's got a scat.